Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamuditya Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhakti Naishtaki. So today we are continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, 10th chapter. Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. Text number 9 onwards. So Brahmaji is speaking these verses. Ekam ekatara bhave yada no kulabhamahe tritayam tatra yoveda so atma swashvayashvayaha. All three of the above mentioned stages of different living entities are interdependent. In the absence of one, another one is not understood. But the Supreme Being, who sees every one of them as a shelter of the shelter, is independent of all, and therefore he is a supreme shelter. So all the above three of the above mentioned stages, which are Adhyatmic, Adibhautik, and Adidevik, and it is said that they are interdependent because one cannot exist or one cannot survive without the other. Like, I know it's been a long time since we discussed. So what had happened before Adhyatmic, Adibhautik, Adidevik? So previous verse it says the individual person possessing different instruments of senses is called the Adhyatmic person. And the individual controlling deity of the senses is called Adidevik. The embodiment seen on the eyeballs is called the Adibhautik person. So Adhyatmic person is the individual person possessing different instruments. Means that is the soul. It's talking about the soul level. And Adidevik is like it says a individual controlling deity of the senses is called the Adidevik or the super soul, we can say. And then Adibhautik is this body, this material body. All three are interdependent on each other because one cannot exist without the other. But Krishna, the Supreme Lord, he is not dependent on the presence of any of these. He is completely independent. There are innumerable living entities, one dependent on the other in the relationship of the controlled and the controller. But without the medium of perception, no one can know or understand who's the controlled and who's the controller. For example, the sun controls the power of our vision. We can see the sun because the sun has its body. And the sunlight is useful only because we have eyes. Without our having eyes, the sunlight is useless. And without the sunlight, the eyes are useless. Thus they are interdependent and none of them is independent. Therefore, the natural question arises concerning who made them interdependent. So Prabhupada gives here a nice example about the sun and the eyes. Of course, sun exists, sun can exist without the eyes. Sunshine can exist without the eyes. And eyes are there even in the darkness. But it's about the utility. So what's the utility of the eyes without the sunshine? Because eyes cannot perform the function of seeing in the absence of sunshine. Then what's the use? And similarly, if the sunshine is there and nobody is there to see anything, nobody is there to utilize that sunshine, what's the use? So that's why it is said they are interdependent for their existence or usefulness. And none of them is independent. Now the question Prabhupada is saying, now who made them interdependent? Means who created this kind of relationship? The one who has made such a relationship of interdependence must be ultimately completely independent. The one who created all this, he must be independent of all this. Otherwise, he cannot create. If if I am dependent on something for my existence, then I cannot create it. So that is Krishna. That is the Supreme Lord. As stated in the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the ultimate source of all interdependent objectives is a complete independent subject. This ultimate source of all interdependence is the Supreme Truth or Paramatma, the Super Soul, who is not dependent on anything else. He is Swashashrayaha. He is only dependent on himself, and thus he is the supreme shelter of everything. And he is only dependent on himself. Means he is not dependent for his existence, for his pastimes, for his um, for his powers. He is not dependent on anything. So that's why he is a supreme Lord. He is a supreme shelter of everything. Although Paramatma and Brahman are subordinate to Bhagavan because Bhagavan is Purushottam or the super person, he is a source of the super soul also. So Paramatma and Brahman, Brahmjyoti, are subordinate to Bhagavan. Because Prabhupada says Bhagavan is a Purushottam or the super person, and he is a super soul of the super soul also. He is a source of the super soul. Because super soul, Paramatma is what? Is expansion of Krishna, basically. Paramatma is expansion of Kshirodaksha Vishnu. And Kshirodaksha Vishnu is expansion of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, which is expansion of Mahavishnu, which ultimately is expansion of Krishna. And Brahmjyoti, and Krishna says about Brahmjyoti that Brahmjyoti is dependent on me. Brahmano hi pratishthamam. In Bhagavad Gita, he says that. So ultimately, everything, Paramatma and Brahmjyoti are also dependent on Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita 15:18, Lord Krishna says that he is the Purushottam and the source of everything. And thus it is concluded that Shri Krishna is the ultimate source and shelter of all entities, including the Super Soul and Supreme Brahman. Even accepting that there is no difference between the Super Soul and the individual soul. The individual soul is dependent on the Super Soul for being liberated from the illusion of material energy. So qualitatively, there is no difference between individual soul and super soul. Both are spiritual. But individual soul, or the living entity, or the Jivatma, is dependent on super soul for its liberation. Krishna says in Gita that Devi Hiesha Gunmaimam Maya Duratyaya Mame Vye Prapadyante Mayamitam Tarantite. That this illusory energy of mind is very difficult to overcome. But who has taken shelter of me can easily overcome it. So there is a difference between individual soul and even if we don't even talk about Bhagwan, even if Paramatma feature. The individual soul is under the clutches of illusory energy, and therefore, although qualitatively one with the super soul, he is under the illusion of identifying himself with matter. And to get out of this illusory conception of actual life, the individual soul has to depend on the super soul to be recognized as one with him. In that sense, also the super soul is a supreme shelter. And there is no doubt about it. So super soul is the one who guides a living entity how to get out of illusion. So And Super Soul is also dependent on Krishna as the Supreme Person. So ultimately, Krishna is the Supreme Shelter. The individual living entity, the Jiva, is always dependent on the Super Soul, Paramatma, because the individual soul forgets his spiritual identity, whereas the Super Soul, Paramatma, does not forget his transcendental position. In the Bhagavad Gita, these separate positions of the Jivatma and the Paramatma are specifically mentioned. In the fourth chapter, Arjuna, the Jiva soul, is represented as forgetful of his many, many previous births. But the Lord, the Super Soul, is not forgetful. The Lord even remembers when he taught the Bhagavad Gita to the sun god some billions of years before. The Lord can remember such millions and billions of years, as stated in Bhagavad Gita as follows: Vedaham samatitani vartmanani cha arjun bhavishyami cha bhutani mav tu vedna kash. The Lord, in his eternal blissful body of knowledge, is fully aware of that happened in the past, that which is going on at the present, and also what will happen in the future. But in spite of his being the shelter of both the Paramatma and Brahman, persons with a poor fund of knowledge are unable to understand him as he is. So here, Prabhupada is mentioning another difference between Jiva and Super Soul, saying that Jivatma is forgetful. I mean, he forgets because he changes the bodies. But the Paramatma or the Supreme Lord, he doesn't forget anything. And this is what Krishna claims in Bhagavad Gita, that he remembers everything that has happened in the past, that is happening now, and that will happen in the future. He knows everything. Of course, that doesn't mean the individual soul doesn't have an independence of doing what in the future. But Krishna says, I know everything that is going to happen in the future. Means he knows to what extent we can make our choices. He knows that. And once we make our choices, he knows what will happen after we make that choice. The propaganda of the identity of the cosmic consciousness, of the consciousness of the individual living entities, is completely misleading, because even such a person as individual soul as Arjuna could not remember his past deeds. Although he is always with the Lord, and what can the tiny ordinary man, falsely claiming to be one with the cosmic consciousness, know about his past, present, and future? So this cosmic consciousness, or the universal consciousness, many people talk about that everything, the cosmic consciousness exists within us. We just have to remember it. It doesn't exist like that. That we are not the cosmic consciousness, or we don't exist all over the universe. That is Paramatma. Jivatma does not. So there's a huge difference between Jivatma and Paramatma. Text 10. Purushondam vinirvidya yadaso sa vinirgata atmano ainam anvichan apo astrakshi chuchi shuchihi. After separating the different universes, the gigantic universal form of the Lord, Mahavishnu, which came out of the causal ocean, the place of appearance for the first Purusha avatar, entered into each of the separate universes, desiring to lie on the created transcendental water, Garbhodak. So now it is mentioned how the whole creation is happening, that how Mahavishnu created the universe and how is entering into each and every universe to lie down as on the Garbhodak Sagar. After analysis of the living entities and the Supreme Lord, Paramatma, the independent source of all of the living beings, Srila Shukdev Goswami is now presenting the prime necessity for devotion service to the Lord, which is the only occupation business of all living entities. The Supreme Lord Shri Krishna and all his plenary portions and extensions of plenary portions are non-different from one another. And thus the supreme independence is in each and every one of them. In order to prove this, Shukdev Goswami has promised to Parikshit Maharaj, describes here in the independence of the Purusharthar, personality of Godhead, even in the sphere of the material creation. Such activities of the Lord are also transcendental, and therefore they are all Leela or pastimes of the Absolute Lord. So here, again, the pastimes of the Lord have been mentioned, how he expands himself and enters each and every universe. And it is mentioned how they're all transcendental pastimes. Such pastimes of the Lord are very conducive to the hearers for self-realization in the field of devotion service. Some may argue, why not then relish the transcendental Leela of the Lord, as exhibited in the land of Mathura and Vrindavan, which are sweeter than anything in the world? Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur replies that the pastimes of the Lord in Vrindavan are meant to be relished by advanced devotees of the Lord. Neophyte devotees will misunderstand such supreme transcendental activities of the Lord, and therefore the Lord's pastimes in the material sphere related to creation, maintenance, and destruction are very relishable by the Prakrit or mundane devotees of the Lord. So Prabhupada is mentioning why we have to go through all this, talking about the creation, how Mahavishnu expands himself and enters each and every universe as Garbhodaksha Vishnu. and other pastimes, like in third canto when we go, it describes about the universe, details of the universe. Fifth canto describes about the details of the time and so many other things. So why not just listen to the pastimes of Lord in Mathura and Vrindavan? Why go through all this? And moreover, more than us, why Parikshit Maharaj had to go through all this? Why Shukdev Goswami spent so much of time in describing all this? Parikshit Maharaj had only 7 days left. Shukdev Goswami could have told him, okay, let's talk about the intimate pastimes of Krishna with gopis and Srimati Radharani. That is the most relishable thing. Why he didn't talk about all this universe and the activities of the energies of the Lord and so many different things? Well, Prabhupada is mentioning, and he is quoting Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that the pastimes of the Lord in Vrindavan are meant to be relished by advanced devotees of the Lord. Very important. Meant to be relished by it. Of course, when we went to this trip to Barsana, Nandagaon and Javat, we discussed so many pastimes. In Javat, we sitting down and discussing the Parkiya Bhav of pastimes of Krishna. Obviously, these pastimes are way beyond our realization. So we do discuss just to, it's not for entertainment. It's for us to realize that the realizations are not even there, not even close to that. To even understand those pastimes. We listen and basically actually entertain ourselves. That's all. We don't get into those pastimes. So for us, for mundane, neophyte, or not even devotees, or trying to be devotees, call ourselves devotees is a big term. We are struggling, trying to be devotees. So that's why it is said the Bhagavatam is supposed to be read from the very beginning. So for us, we have to read it from the very beginning and try to understand the opulence of Krishna. How Krishna, how everything, like the universal form, how everything exists within Krishna. Nothing is beyond Krishna. Nothing is beyond the control of Krishna. And look at the understanding is Bhagwan, Paramatma feature, Brahm Jyoti feature. Nothing is independent of the supreme feature of the personality of Godhead. Nothing. So once we go from this stage and still we continue with our sadhana, we can make progress. And then we have to understand our position. Who are we? Just like previously we were reading, this whole material world, material cosmos, is all the material universes. They appear when Mahavishnu exhales, and all the universes are within the realms, within the pores of the body of Mahavishnu, and they come out. All these material universes, the whole material creation, is what? It is mentioned, it's just lying in the insignificant corner of the whole creation. The rest is all spiritual. And this is just a dark cloud on the insignificant corner of the creation. And this dark cloud, when it is unmanifest, it's called Mahatattva. And when it is manifest, it's called Pradhan. And then in this Pradhan, all the millions and millions of material universes are there. And in each of material universe, there are millions and billions of planets. There are 14 planetary systems, but every system has so many of planets. And among all those millions and billions of planets, there is Earth, which is one small planet, Earth, which has so many countries, so many cities. And in one of those cities, we are sitting in the house in one of the insignificant streets in those cities. What is our position? Nothing. And look at Krishna's position. He controls everything. So that's why Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says, these are verily easily relishable by the prakrit of mundane devotees of the Lord. So if we don't even relish his pastimes of creation, maintenance, and destruction, so we are not even mundane devotees. We're not even there yet. We haven't even begun yet, looks like, on the devotion service. We've been so struggling so much. As a yoga system mainly based on bodily exercises is meant for the person who is too much attached to the bodily conception of existence. Similarly, the Lord's pastimes related to creation and destruction of the material world are for those who are too materially attached. For such mundane creatures, the functions of the body and the functions of the cosmic world through physical laws in relationship with the Lord are also therefore included in understanding of the lawmaker, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The scientists explain the mundane functions by so many technical terms of material law, but such blind scientists forget the lawmaker. The Srimad Bhagavatam points out the lawmaker. One should not be amazed by the mechanical arrangement of the complicated engine or dynamo, but one should praise the engineer who creates such a wonderful working machine. That is the difference between devotee and non-devotee. So we should appreciate, we should give our gratefulness, express our regard to the person who has created the whole thing, the whole universe, the whole cosmic manifestation. Devotees are always full with praising the Lord who directs the physical laws. In Bhagavad Gita, the direction of the Lord upon the material nature is described as follows. The material nature, full of physical laws, is one of my different energies. Therefore, it's neither independent nor blind. So, again, long purport Towards the end, Prabhupada writes, Lord Krishna incarnated himself as he is and played very wonderful parts as the Lord himself. And the Bhagavad Gita concerns such wonderful actions and knowledge. Yet foolish men will not accept Lord Krishna as a supreme Lord. Generally, they consider the infinitesimal and infinite features of the Lord because they themselves are unable to become either the infinitesimal or the infinite. But one should know the infinite and infinitesimal sizes of the Lord, not his highest glories. The most wonderful manifestation of Lord's power is exhibited when the infinite Lord becomes visible to our eyes as one of us. So that is his glories. And not just he becomes visible, he acts, he deals like one of us. He deals with us lovingly. Just imagine if the most powerful person in the world, maybe suppose in India, Prime Minister Modi, and he comes and deals with us very lovingly. So much of powers he has. Just like when he goes and meets his mother, he just, his mother doesn't treat him like the Prime Minister of India, like the most powerful man in India. He just his son. That's it. So just similarly, Krishna is infinitely more powerful than Modi. Who's Modi in front of Krishna? If that Krishna comes and deals with us so lovingly, that's his glories. They cannot understand that the Lord Shri Krishna, although in the form of a human being by his own potency, is still the Supreme Lord with full potency as a Supreme Controller. So this is what Bhagavatam does. When, however, the Mudas give submission and oral reception to the messages of the Lord, as in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, through the channel of disciplic succession, such Mudas also become devotees of the Lord by the grace of his pure devotees. And for this reason only, either in Bhagavad Gita or in Srimad Bhagavatam, the pastimes of the Lord in the material world are delineated for the benefit of those men with a poor fund of knowledge. So the idea is to keep on listening to Bhagavatam and the reading of Bhagavatam. Then we can start appreciating the position of Krishna. And that is the beginning of our self-realization. Hare Krishna. So we shall stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandatnam.
Dandatwan.
Prabhuji, in fact, not related to this entire topic, but slightly touching it, wherein we discussed about Bhagavad Gita, wherein the Lord says Krishna, that he remembers everything and Arjuna cannot remember. So Prabhuji, tell me, in fact, this reminds me, I think couple of months back, one of my colleague, he heard about some person who does past life regression. So it was kind of just striking me now. So is that something of a phenomena that happens, or is it still bogus like any material thought? And because soul cannot remember anything which has happened in the past, so we cannot remember. Would you know, Prabhuji?
Soul doesn't remember because it's the mercy of Krishna that makes him forget. But there are cases when the soul has remembered. Like recently, I was reading somewhere the 3-year-old kid, he remembered how he died in the previous life, and he took everybody to that village, and he explained how he was killed and who killed him. So because he had, from the very birth, he had a mark of X on his forehead. So he was killed by an X in his previous life. So soul is made to forget. It's by mercy of Krishna. But all the memories are still in the mind, in the subconscious mind. Everything is kept as uh, a image in the mind. So, so past life regression, when they do, they can make us open our own images. They cannot know the images. They cannot know what's happened in the past life, but they can help us open those screenshots, and we can see what happened in the past. But I don't know to what extent they do it properly, or is still the play or games of the mind. I don't know, but there are. I mean, everything that we do is stored in the mind. That's for sure. How to open those files? Maybe those people know the tricks.
And that is how Prabhuji, our sanskar has also become manifest at times. It opens the past
Sans-
sanskaras.
Sanskaras are whatever we have learned from the past, or whatever impressions we got. So based on those sanskaras, we act. But whatever happened in the past, to see that, it just, yes, it's in the file is there in the CPU somewhere. How to open that? That depends. And which
Ah,
file to open, like from one previous life, 10 previous lives, I don't know how they do it.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Okay,
Prabhat.
one question, Prabhuji, one question. I was watching one video of Amog Leela Prabhuji on YouTube,
Okay.
where he was talking about, somebody asked like a kind of question to him that whether the ghost exists in this world or not. And he clarifies it very nicely that if somebody accidentally died before his lifetime or before his end of life, he becomes a ghost and he will serve till be a ghost till his end of life. I mean, whatever the days, number of days he's going to live. Right
Mhm.
now, just relating this thing, and what he adds to it is he says that after the last day of his life, he will get rid of his whatever the ghost form of his life. छुटकारा मिल जाता है उसे, he is free from it. Now, relating this story to Dhundkari story, Dhundkari and Gokaran.
Mhm.
Now, Dhundkari was in Pretyoni. He was a ghost because of his wrong doings. And then Gokaran, his brother, he has. I mean, he comes back in the ghost form and says that I am still suffering, my brother.
Mhm.
Can you help
Mhm.
me out to get rid of this? And then Gokaran went to Suryadev and asked for what is the best possible way to do this. And then Suryadev said about his Bhagavad Katha
Mhm.
and all to do it. Okay, finally he get rid of his Pret Yoni or the ghost form of life.
Mhm.
So the question is, there are two. It, it's not rational. I mean, we one way where Amog Leela Prabhuji is saying that last day of your life, if you are in a ghost form, you leave here. Uh, you get rid of that ghost form. And on the other side, Dhundkari and Gokaran, that's another story where he was not able to get rid of his, Pret Yoni, and immediately he get rid of it after listening to Bhagavad Gita or the Bhagavatam.
Mhm.
So, is that beforehand? Is that something logically like before? If you listen, if in Pret Yoni,
Um, so now the ghost body, according to what Prabhupada has explained, if somebody commits suicide or somebody uh, meets an accident where his body is so much of or like it's destroyed to the extent that the soul cannot live in the body any longer. So obviously both the things happen because of plenty of sinful activities. Without that, one cannot commit suicide. That's very much sin anyway. So suppose I was supposed to live for 70 years and I commit suicide at 40, or or I get into an accident where body is so mutilated that I cannot live any longer in that body at the age of 40. But I still have 30 more years to before my next body is created according to the um, proper rule. So I have to live as ghost for 30 years. In case of Dhundukari, so yes, at the natural cycle, at the end of 30 years, I'll be eligible to get the next body. But in case of Dhundukari, he was so sinful. He was so sinful. That's when he approached Gokarn and asked for release from this ghostly body. So yes, Bhagavatam is so powerful that it can release one from even ghostly body if somebody became a ghost. But one has to listen to Bhagavatam the way Dundukari heard, with full rapt attention. And not just he got released from the ghostly body, he went back to the spiritual world after listening to Bhagavatam for 7 days. And that's why it was mentioned that there were other people in the audience also listening to same Bhagavatam from Gokarn. None of them got liberated except Dundukari, because he listened with rapt attention, with desperation. We take it easy when we read or listen to Bhagavatam. So to answer your question, yes, there is a certain life cycle of ghosts also, but how long will that be? We don't know. So that's why and they have committed so much of sin that it's difficult for them to get out of it on their own.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So we'll stop here. You all have a wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare
Jai
Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada.